Hello again, and welcome to Light Up, a series where we talk about simple life skills that can help young people to navigate better in our communities, in our society, to see their lives thrive for the better, to really improve, take self-improvement steps. And in today's conversation, we are going to talk about a few topics here and there. But the first one that I want us to talk about is something that I picked recently when I was having conversations with young people in a school setting. And I realized this is quite important, it's quite profound, the power of community or the power of communities. So just to give you a background and setting, we were in a school and we were having these light up conversations with students, really having a good time. And among the conversations that came up, I asked the students who are high school students, senior 6 leavers, senior 5 and senior 6. They were all in the same grouping. So I asked them the kind of vocations that they're interested in now that they're looking forward to going to universities, and a couple of years later, 4, 5 years, 3 years, depending on the careers that they want to pursue, they would be graduates and they would go into the world of work. So I took a typical example and I asked a group of them, how many of you want to be doctors? You really want to focus on health? Helping people who are ill, providing this public service. And a large number came up. There must have been more than 40 of them. And just to trim down this group further, I asked them, okay, so all of you want to be doctors of sorts, specialties and all. So then I went further and asked them, how many of you want to really treat children, pediatricians? So trimming that number down, it came down to around, there were about 10 or so, 10, 12, give or take. And so out of these 12 young ladies who came up, I asked them, so your interest is really to treat children, you want to be pediatricians. So in that entire group of more than 200 students, I asked these 12 prospective pediatricians to name their friends within the group of more than 200 students. And I asked each one of them, go into the group, gather your friends and stand in a certain spot so we can see your friends, so to say your community. And I can tell you, out of all of them, I didn't find one who had friends that even came to 10. And that's not a problem. But I was trying to demonstrate something. And some of them had 2, others had 4, some had like about 8, which was really great. And so I asked these friends, how much do you really know your friends? How long have you been friends? And at that point, we started going into a deeper conversation of where I wanted them to look and where I wanted them to see. Because within this entire gathering, it occurred to me that despite the fact that these 12 doctors would be doctors in a few years' time, despite the fact that they had been with this community of more than 200 people, remember this is just senior 6 and senior 5. You're not counting all level backwards, from senior 4 to senior 1. And you've not counted people who were there when they joined the school. So this was an entire community full of young ladies who are growing up. And it occurred to me that these would be doctors, only have a few friends, a handful at best of friends within this entire community. So we continued with our conversation, and then I had to ask them, okay, do you realize that in the next 6 years, even within this auditorium right now of 200 students, and then those that are not in the auditorium right now, okay, they're all going to grow, they're all going to become adults. and particularly the ones who are seated in the auditorium, in the next 6 years, all of them, when I asked how many want to be mothers, their hands went up. So they already see themselves in the future. So now an interesting question came up. I asked, out of these 12 doctors, would-be doctors, how many of you want to work in public service? How many of you want to work in government hospitals? And I didn't see a lot of enthusiasm to this question. Most of them anyway wanted to be private practitioners, so they wanted to start their own private practice, or they wanted to work in private for-profit establishments, but to provide health services for children nonetheless. So at that point, we started going into a conversation. I asked them the question then that really mattered, that what do you think would happen if all the 200 plus young ladies seated in this room and those who are in O level were to become acquaintances of yours as a pediatrician? And all it takes is for you to build this community, build social relations with this community, befriend this community. And then they started seeing the connections. So when I talk about the power of communities here, it usually occurs that when young people are being nurtured, when young people are being brought up, we don't do a lot of encouragement for them to build social relations. But this is very, very important. Look around us. And as for us as parents, as adults, we see this every day. Within our community setups, we have all these important social communities that help us to thrive, that become part of our support system. And in so many ways, these communities help us to move things. They help us to get by. They help us to live better. And even if you're looking at economic prospects, social prospects, life prospects, spiritual nourishment, anywhere you look, you will always need that community. And in so many ways, we take these communities for granted, maybe because of other people's efforts who've taken time to build and establish these communities for us to come in, settle in, and thrive. But intentional means of each and every one of us building social relations and social communities helps us a lot. And if we look back now at how our young people can benefit from this skill, it's something that we need to help them nurture. If they're in a school setting, we need to help them to build social relations within a school system. If they're outside school and they're in our communities, within their home neighborhoods, within other work communities and other social communities, we still need to help them to build these social relations. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand, as much as help them understand the same, that the power of communities is really, really important in one's life. And so to say, I was trying to explain to these young ladies, we use the example of doctors. But think of a person who is going to go into the vocation of auto mechanization, who is going to be an automotive engineer. Think of someone who wants to go into civil engineering, someone who wants to go into real estate business. Think of someone who wants to be a designer of clothes. All these people, at the end of the day, ultimately, their clientele is people. Okay? And it's very, very important for young people to appreciate that fact that if you build strong social relations, this is where your thriving comes from. This is where your support system comes from. So if you take the example of a pediatrician, if you're talking about a young lady, a student in a school who has managed to build a big community within the school setup, 6 years down the road, 5 years down the road, when they are certified pediatricians, they already have a big network. And that network becomes a clientele network where they can serve and give these services to these people. And remember, people who are strangers, they are people who they already know. So there is an element, a huge element of trust. And that is very, very important. So that's what I really wanted to raise as an important element, that let's start talking to our young people about the power of community. okay? And not just in a passive way, you know. When someone says, for example, the political connotation of people power, you know, look at it for what it literally means. If you have relations with people, that's where your power sits. If you can garner big numbers of people, someone is going to pay attention. And most of the people will always gravitate where most people usually go. And that is very important. So that is something we need to help young people to harness, the power of the community. And we don't need to help them to do this or to understand the importance when it's late. I think we can take certain steps and certain measures to help young people to begin honing in on those skills of how to build social relations with their peers, with other communities, with the community of elders. And around these, they'll always build a strong and supportive life system in whatever it is that they choose to do as a vocation. But also it helps them in their own social life, and it helps them to thrive and live a better life. Thanks for watching.